Welcome to the Pi&AI Lisbon, the first event in this format of teleconference, let's say. This was supposed to be a meetup in the beginning, but we changed for this format. We have a very interesting agenda today. I will start to do event with a special thanks to AskBlue and OutSystems for sponsoring this event, and we are going to start with a video from Andrew Ang, the founder of deeplearning.ai, and to give you a welcome to this event. Let me share my screen.
Hello, deep learners. I'm Andrew Ng, founder of deeplearning.ai, and I'm excited to welcome you to our global deep learning community. I know that many of you are here today because you want to break into AI and build your career. I hope that being part of this community will help you to do so. To give you a proper welcome, I'd like to show you around the deeplearning.ai offices and meet some of the teams so that you can see where it all happens.
Oh, hi, Andrew.
Do you want to tell our friends at Pi&AI what you do at deeplearning.ai?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I make articles and other media that help people learn about AI and help them understand the huge impact that AI is having in the world. Today, I'm putting together the next issue of The Batch, our weekly newsletter, and I'm looking for the biggest stories of the week to keep our readers informed.
What's been the most surprising thing you've run into working on The Batch?
How much is going on in this field? There's never a dull moment. You might think from the outside that machine learning engineers really understand everything about AI, but nobody understands everything about AI because this field is just coming to life right before my eyes as I put this thing together every week.
All right, I know you're really busy, so let you get back to it.
Thanks. See you later.
Let's go meet Kian, who helped me create the deep learning specialization. He's working on an exciting new project. Hey Kian, so do you want to tell the people at Pi&AI what you're working on?
Yes, sure. I'm leading a project called Coursera, focusing on helping people get offers in AI and navigating their career by testing their skills, preparing for interviews and certifying them, as well as matching and referring them to good jobs in AI.
That's really cool. And what's the most exciting part of your day?
You know, the AI field is new, organizations and jobs are still misunderstood. So I'm excited to help people understand what different types of jobs exist in the field, what tasks they will work on, and what skills are needed to achieve those tasks.
And that's really important work. Well, it's nice chatting. And now let's go chat to Hotel, who is on their product team.
Hey, Andrew.
Do you want to say hi to our friends at Pi&AI and let them know what you're working on?
I would love to. Hi, everyone. I lead the product team in deeplearning.ai, where we create AI education content accessible to people all around the world. People like you.
And what are you most excited about right now?
I am so excited to see our community grow and to see how eager people are to learn more about AI.
Thanks, also.
Thanks, Andrew.
So, as you can see, our team is working hard to support you and help you learn. It's never been easier than before to break into AI. So if you want to build a career, you can leverage online resources available, including open source code, datasets, papers, and online courses like a deep learning specialization on Coursera. As part of this journey, I hope you get your hands dirty too. Don't be afraid of diving in to build your own project. Or go ahead and try to replicate a research paper that you're excited about. One thing that I've seen help a lot of people succeed is if you can build a community or find a community of fellow deep learners you can meet with and study with on a regular basis. In fact, I hope that this Pi&AI meetup that you're at right now will be a good place for you to meet these people. I hope you enjoyed the event today and that you learn a lot, both from the talks and from each other. And once again, welcome to the deeplearning.ai community.
Okay. This was a welcome by Professor Andrew Ng. Andrew is known for this statement. AI is the new electricity, in the sense that AI will impact every industry and will create huge economic impact. Technologies like supervised learning and supervised learning are more or less kind of as automation on steroids, and it will have going to have impact in every sector, transforming every industry. In fact, in the beginning, it was a statement from Andrew and when the electricity was an innovation, there used to be a kind of vice president for electricity in the companies. And nowadays, electricity is a commodity, but you cannot do nothing without electricity in the corporate world. AI, this vision, it will have a similar impact, not only in corporations, but also in society as well. That's why it's important to have people with different backgrounds discussing these topics of AI. It's not just a technical thing. It's something that we are going to have impact on our society, in our freedom, and it's good to have people from different backgrounds to discuss about that. Andrew was also a professor in Stanford, who teach for long years machine learning, and a founder of deeplearning.ai, a company that with the main focus is to the education of AI globally. There are several courses that we are going to present on this session. Andrew Ng was also one of the founders of Coursera, so the movement of online courses. Andrew was part of this movement, and with courses that now has more than 3 million of viewers associated with the deep learning, and also as work at the Google Brain Project, and also work also in the Baidu. So I have this broad vision of AI, different continents, different types of academic fields, business fields, and we'll have this view regarding AI, a very interesting view that we'll try to share on this event. For the today's event, we put up some speakers and panelists. Let me talk a little bit about me first, and then I will introduce each of the speakers and the panelists briefly. We'll enter in detail when they present their presentation or in a panel. I've been working at AskBlue. AskBlue is a consulting company, mainly in digital transformation projects, using OutSystems low-code platform. AI for me, it's a very interesting topic, and a topic that I like to discuss several views of the topic. Normally, I like the corporate view in the sense that will have impact on the organization, and there is kind of a long way to go to bring AI for all the companies. As you have today, internet, it's a part of normally all the business, and it's not for having a website that you are an internet company. The same thing today, it's happening with AI. It's not just because you have kind of an algorithm or process that you integrate with AI. You are not an AI company. AI companies are companies like Facebook, like Google, like Apple. And there's a long way to go for the other companies to use their own data to leverage on the power of AI. We are going also to have a presentation, a very practical presentation regarding the application of AI from Antonio Alegria. Antonio Alegria is the head of AI from OutSystems, and OutSystems is using AI internally in order to improve the process of the software development. Antonio will share with us what was this um, perspective, from a practical perspective, for bringing AI to a success low-code platform. Elia is my colleague at AskBlue, is leading also the part of AI and the part of consulting associated with this area, and we'll share with us also some insights regarding the current jobs at EI, existing jobs with different skills, and the future jobs for EI, for people that are going to study EI. The idea is not the future jobs in society because of the AI, but jobs associated with the AI that that are going to arise in the future. Miguel are going to lead the panel, and Miguel is vice president at OutSystems, and has a broader view regarding all digital transformation around the world. And we'll bring that perspective to this event as well. Pedro has a technical background and loves AI as well. He's taking some courses from Andrew Ng, and has a large commercial experience in telecommunications. So he's now the business development manager for Cloud 365. They have AI products that are bringing to the market, and Pedro will have this corporate view, how easy or how difficult it will be for a company to start to integrate AI in their process. Sofia de Vasconcelos Casimiro is a professor of law. Is also is a professor of law in the Portuguese Military Academy and the University of Lisbon. Is also a specialist in cybersecurity, and we will try to bring Sofia to the panel. Sofia, in fact, is having an event at the same time today, in order to bring that perspective as well regarding the AI, because the idea here is not only to have technical views, but since AI is reaching other points of society, to have views regarding ethics, to have views regarding law, cybersecurity, economics, and the panel will address that. Amilcar Moreira is also a researcher. Is a researcher at the Institute of Social Science. This subject of pension plans, is an expert on that. So AI will have for sure impacts on jobs, and some people say that are going to there will be lots of unemployment associated with AI. New jobs will be created as well, and Amilcar are going to share what are the possibilities in order to mitigate that kind of effects on the AI on society. Ricardo Castro Ferreira is a teacher, professor of Portuguese, and loves this area of AI, with special focus in ethics. He loves the part of ethics, and ethics is an important topic in AI. So I will start with some introduction, some logistic of the event. I will present the kind of a world status of AI 2019. We have a 50 minutes break at 10:45. After this world status of AI, I will present also the part of the learning curve of AI, what are the courses that are available, especially the courses of deeplearning.ai. And also ALD are going to address also the questions regarding the jobs here. After the break, we'll have the AI in practice with Antonio Alegria, the session that Antonio will present their slides associated with all the journey that to bring AI to assist development of the software. Another break after this, and we'll end the session with a panel with these hot topics, let's say, and all the panelists that I've already presented to be participating in the panel, and Miguel will lead that panel. Okay, without further ado, let's go to the slides of the world status of AI. Before going to the slides, just to make some clarification, demystifying the AI. Normally, when people talk about AI, the majority of people are thinking about artificial general intelligence, something that will do things at least a human level or even better. And people start to thinking about killer robots, jobs that computers that are going to do everything. We are not there yet. Eventually, even for specialists on the area, they say that this general intelligence, several decades away, eventually 100 years away. But today we have lots of new formulas that we call artificial narrow intelligence. Basically, you can do a specific task, a very specific task, very well, even for some situations better than human. And these are not general intelligence, meaning it's just a specific task. You can recognize a picture, see a defect in a picture. You can have a smart speaker that will hear your voice and translate to text and send to a web service. You can have a self-driving car. There are specific activities that artificial intelligence can do even better in some cases at a human level, but it is not artificial general intelligence. It won't be do everything better than a human. It's a specific task. You can even divide this artificial narrow intelligence into areas. Supervised learning, when you give a set of data and the application will learn from this data. Okay, the data is normally some kind of catalog in the data, meaning there is kind of a training set in the data. You say, for this, the output should be that, and we have millions of records in order to learn. Then normally you have a cross-validation test set in order, let's do some fine-tuning on the algorithm to see if this work better this way or that way. After that, you go to the real world and see what will be the performance of this algorithm. And this is supervised learning in the sense that you supervise all this process within this specific narrow task. And supervised learning, it's more like you give data to this algorithm, and the algorithm will do your learning. Imagine you want to do a clustering analysis. You just do the data, the raw data, and the algorithm will associate that in clusters. This is unsupervised learning. Okay. Nowadays, there is also another kind of category, self-supervised learning. It's for instance, you can have an image. You know that is an image of a cat, and the machine are going to change the RGB, a specific color in an image, and it will train with that new image with a specific color changes. But they know that it will be a cat as well, but it will improve the algorithm. There is kind of a virtuous cycle on this. If you have more data, you have better algorithms. More users, you have more users, then you are going to have more data as well, better algorithm. In this case, it's kind of a self-supervised learning. You can to generate your own data, but it's the same idea. It's a supervised learning thing in order to learn something. So machine learning is a specific area of AI. AI is a broader concept. Basically give computers the ability to learn without being explicit programmed, meaning nowadays the majority of languages, you say, if you have this condition, you do that. For the machine learning, the algorithm will learn with the data, and after being in production, will learn as more data as we go. Okay, it's not specific. It's very difficult, for instance, to programming say, okay, this is a cat image, because in your pixel on the top right you have kind of a specific part of a cat. It's difficult to do that way, but if you have 1,000 images of cats and you apply this to the algorithm with this 1,000 image or 10,000 image of the cats will learn. That's the idea of these machine learning algorithms. Inside machine learning, there is kind of also the deep learning or neural networks. Normally, it's the same. It's using machine learning with a specific type of architecture inspired in the human brain, but it's only inspired. It's not a replica of a human brain, called neural networks. Okay, let's go for the global status of AI. Before of that, I have this. In fact, there is a course from deeplearning.ai. It's not a technical course. It's a course that will help understanding these concepts for the organization. It's on Coursera, and it's a course from deeplearning.ai. Very interesting course. What is AI? Building AI projects, what you can build, what you cannot build today, and do kind of a due diligence regarding what is possible within your organization, and then how to bring that to the organization. Kind of identify a project to create a momento, involve more people on the organization, try to lead also with this change management within the organization and within the society as well, because some of these developments could have some impacts on the way people on society are going to see your company. So you need to manage that as well. And these are very interesting courses. If you want not technical course, if you want to take it, it's just to go to the deeplearning.ai and take it a course. Some of the insights that I'm going to present to you are based on that course as well. Okay, world status of AI. Our view here, and these are going to be based on the report from Standard that I'm going to share after. It's kind of a view in the sense that things are going to get to the corporate world. First, starting the academia with the several types of papers that we can see in the academia. Then the developer world start to do some things, and I will give you some insights as well at the type of things that type of libraries that the developers are using to bring these to the companies. And then the things are going to reach the society, and things like ethical are going to arise, and people are going to job losses, things like that are going to be also you need to take that also into the equation, and then after that this all gets to the corporate world. There is a huge added value on this new AI process getting to the corporate world. McKinsey Research Institute estimate that added value in 13 trillion by 2013. So this is a huge amount. So that will have an impact on the companies and on society. Okay, the slides that I'm going to present, part of the slides are based on this human-centered artificial intelligence index from the Stanford. Stanford has this initiative. It's a human-centered artificial intelligence, exactly to discuss these matters associated with these themes of AI and the impact on society. Of course, I'm not going to present all the studies. It's a very long study, but I will bring from the study some information associated with this developer view, this academia view, and some this society view of AI. Okay, let's start with the part of academia. There is a site called Archive in the internet. It's a free site. You can go there and download specific papers associated with a specific subject. It's a site that anyone can publish a paper there. There is no kind of peer review, but normally people know if it is a good paper or not based on the feedback. And the subjects that have been arising on the type of papers by subcategory. You see the slide. Machine learning and computer vision and pattern recognition are increasing a lot in the recent years. Also computation and language. So this is this seems starting on academia to have impact, and lots of people are publicating their own specific papers, normally in the specific topic of AI, and these fields are increasing in the machine learning and computer vision and pattern recognition. It's also interesting to understand the origins of the papers, and you can see here normally they are American papers, European papers, and also Asia or East Asia and Pacific, typically China papers, because there is also kind of a global competition between countries in order to be better than the others on these fields. Also because it will have impact, a huge impact, as you see, on the economic, but some of these areas are also associated with the war, the military. So they need to be ahead on these areas. If we break down specifically by country, you see, and this is between 2015 and 2018, the papers, most of the papers are from the United States. And the second country, it is China, that is been increasing a lot the number of papers associated with deep learning and machine learning. Portugal, in fact, is here as well, but at least it is on the graph. If you see each country as kind of and this graphic is very interesting and highlights the countries that have specifically AI strategies already in place. This is a strategy from the government specific to AI. As you can see in the United States, in China, there are very specific strategies for AI. And in this case, this is a very analysis to do worldwide. This was based on papers that are translated to English, but fair enough. There is and this geopolitical thing, it's important to understand as well when you are on the field. There is kind of a war between 3 or 4 nations in AI, and you can see that on this map. Typically, China, United States, Russia, they are countries that are investing a lot with national strategies to have good skills on AI, good researchers, institutes, people working on that area, and integrate AI in several areas, because of course it will have economic impact and will reinforce their dominance in the world, let's say. Continuing in the academia activity, the attendance for specific conference in the recent years, especially this NIPS, now it's a newer IPS, is a conference on neural information processing systems, is increasing. And the type of papers on this conference are papers regarding machine learning, deep learning, computer vision. Also this conference on computer vision, pattern recognition increasing. So there is we start to see a lot of interest on the academia on these matters, and for sure these are going to reach the rest of the corporate world. It's just a question of time. If you see now a little bit the developers' activity, basically the developer are going to leverage on this paper and start to do some application. This is a very interesting graph as well. It's based on the type of AI library that the developers are using. In this case, are rating, give a 5 stars rating on the GitHub. GitHub is a platform to share code between developers, and there is the corporate back research frameworks like TensorFlow that is backed by Google are gaining some importance, and also PyTorch that it was originated in the Facebook, and even these libraries are start to consolidate. Someone start integrating in another one, and there are also some without any kind of corporation behind, but TensorFlow, PyTorch, Scikit-learn are gaining some importance, and these are specific libraries that we use when you want to do some kind of AI application. Typically, these frameworks will have very good mathematical libraries, typically for do matrix multiplication, all because this with all of this data we need to have these very good implementations of the libraries in order to have an algorithm that can have a good performance. And Google, Facebook are on the game. Okay, that's the idea here. I will also highlight in terms of this developer activity kind of human level performance milestones, meaning some achievements on the area of AI. Normally, this type of achievements are very task specific. Some are impressive, but you cannot generalize this to other tasks. And the most of these milestones normally are associated to games or something like that. This hotel in 1980, this hotel game, the Checkers in 1995, the Jeopardy, the IBM Watson computer for a specific contest. The Go as well, the with Google DeepMind involved, and the Beat, the Go, the best player in the world. In fact, I think there's also a Netflix movie about that. And we can continue. But in the last years, you see things like Chinese English translation. You start to see some achievements in the medicine, prostate cancer grading. This last one, the diabetic retinopathy with specialist level accuracy, meaning it's something that are using AI for the good and are doing this better than human. Of course, the majority of this is on a very specific area, and normally at the research level. If you go to production with this, it will be difficult, as we are today, to doing that in a hospital massive while, because it must be a very good hospital with all the conditions, but that's the challenge that we have for the majority of AI application when you need to go to the real world, to production. And normally it's another thing that I would like to highlight. This part of AI is just 20% of the thing, because the other thing, it will be the infrastructure to support that, the DevOps to do that. If you change the algorithm, this will be part of a major systems, And AI is just a part. You need to do the change management as well. Sometimes you need to change the process, the way you do this in an organization. And the AI is just a part. It's a part of a larger ecosystem that you need to take in account if you want to go to production with this type of applications. Regarding society, there are things that are starting to arise, okay, associated normally with ethical things. Fairness, because the algorithm, it was trained with some data behind. Um, this data normally, you don't know this data, there is no transparency regarding this data. There are cases in that you train to identify criminals or something like that. It was based on the specific ethnic group, and of course, algorithm doesn't know that, and are going to provide some insights that are biased to a specific group. So this part of the transparency of the data is very important as well. Explainability of the algorithms cannot be just a black box. You can have some kind of explainability regarding what's happening with these applications. Accountability. If you have a problem with this, with the responsible for that, it was the developer, it was the company that has this in production, or it was the user that provide specific data to improve the training of the algorithm and leads to that type of situation. There are lots of issues associated, ethical issues for specific algorithms, and in fact today you already have this kind of issues. If you go to a search on the Google, there is AI behind. Even and you are going to receive some kind of feedback, but it is not clear for you what will be the algorithm behind, and what will be eventually the human control behind, because you can, at some situations, you lose a little bit the control of the algorithm. You cannot control anymore, and just let the algorithm go. So this fairness, interpretability, and explainability, transparency are most mentioned across all these ethical challenges of AI. And we do not need to discuss in the 200 years if robots with have general intelligence, AGI, because today there are lots of issues in the self-driving car, in the search on the internet, that already have these questions associated with ethical, and that is today that we need to discuss these things in order to change eventually the impact that they could have on society. And then again, AI could also be used for good. This is a study that compared with United Nations 17 United Nations guideline for sustainable development, and AI could impact in several ways. Almost all the guidelines, of course. For instance, in good health, in good well-being, with applications that you can use in a mobile phone, but behind as all the knowledge associated with medicine that you can put in this type of algorithms training with large amounts of data, and you can do that. This, of course, could have a good impact, especially in developer world that does not has access to this kind of technology, but you can help them using these AI algorithms. But then again, there is also another type of utilization of AI, in this case for autonomous weapons, and it's always difficult to have these numbers. This is a study from until 2016, but for sure this part of the using this technology in order to give more fighting capabilities, and eventually with these execution decisions by themselves. This is a issue as well, and that's why some nations are very interesting on the AI as well, because it will give you some power regarding these autonomous weapons. But not only. If you see, for instance, the fake news phenomenon could have AI behind. You can have algorithms on the internet generated news and things like that, and there is lots of things associated with this, and could influence elections in specific countries, and even the cyber war. It's not only the fighting with these autonomous weapons anymore, but if you can paralyze a country with a cyber attack for a specific something that is need a power plant for a camping or something like that. This is a type of war as well. And as long as we have more digital things and more digital transformation and all of these areas, of course, you can attack this type of systems with the attacks with the cyber war and things like that. And then again, the number of the countries that are more associated with that type of investment and autonomous military systems. These are days of 2017, but USA, Israel, Russia, the same countries as you see. Another thing that is interesting in the sense that these are reaching also and in fact this is not developer activity, this is for the society, is the number of AI mentions in the earning calls for the corporation, and you can see here clearly in 2010 it was the cloud that was the major keyword. Then the big data, it was the keyword that normally people, when are announcing earnings for the companies every year or every quarter, refer that the company is very innovative because it's investing on this type of technology. And now AI and machine learning, it's the theme that they are announcing as being part of being innovative in the corporate world. And if you see specific by sector, typically the sectors that are leveraging more of that are the finance sector, electronic technology, producing manufacturing. You can do these automations on steroids for using leverage on computer vision, things like that on manufacturing lines. As well, health technology, and these are the sectors that are referring this type of AI as a sustainable advantage. The main challenge for the corporation, and this is from the Gartner, are skills, the enterprise maturity, the skills of the staff for this type of areas. Data scope or quality, you need to process the data, you need to have infrastructure in order to aggregate this data from different parts, typically a data lake. Also the fear of unknown, understanding AI benefits and uses, something that is also a challenge for corporations. And finding a starting point. Sometimes it's difficult to understand to find the initial project. Okay, and in the course AI for everyone, there is some kind of a playbook for this. So when you are in a company, you need to first to execute kind of a small project, typically with a specialized partner, to gain some momentum regarding the technology. Otherwise, you need to invest a lot in the beginning in infrastructure and it's better to define your strategy after doing this first initial project. It won't be perfect, but at least you could have some kind of insights regarding what will be better for your organization, what specific areas or what type of needs you have. Typically, you are not going to have this on these skills on your company, so you leverage this on the specialized partner. And partner here could be the hardware, data infrastructure, software, machine learning, all of these. Then the recommendation is kind of create a center, a specialized AI team, and this should be at least at the corporate level, not specific to only for one business unit, because this centralized AI team will aggregate data from all the business units, and there are roles that starting to appear, kind of chief artificial intelligence officer, remind me the vice president for electricity in the beginning of electricity. Uh, then provide the training, AI training, not only for technical people, but also for executives to understand what AI can do and what cannot do. Um, Teach how to conduct this technical and business due diligence in order to to see if it is feasible now, what will be the impact for the company if you automate this process. And for people could be also kind of a motivation. It's a new area that's lots of online courses available. People can be trained online and try to bring value to the company based on that. And then after these initial steps, the recommendation is define your own strategy. In the sense that if you do this on the beginning, and it is normally the way to do for other areas, it will be a very academic strategy. In this with this approach, you can get insights from your company, and then define your strategy, and then propose your investments in data lakes and things like that, because you have already these insights that you can leverage on that. There is a kind of a virtual circle of AI. That is, you have the initial data, an algorithm, you get more users, you get more data, you have a better algorithm, better service, and you get more users. This is the virtual cycle of AI. More data, more quality, and for instance, there are companies that understand that and do this kind of strategic acquisition of data. For instance, Gmail is free, majority, but it will allow Google to analyze all of this data associated with Gmail. Google Photos are free as well. So these are strategic data acquisition, in the sense that we are going to offer these services because you know that the data is important, and it's important to us to have a better service. And you can have this type of strategies as well in your company. And then again, last but not the least, communicate internally, special attention to job loss, things like that, and also externally, in order to not to have kind of a PR problem, because you are addressing this specific area of AI without communicating properly to the market, and this could have an impact on your company as well. My last slide before you go to a break. This was from the Andrew Ang, the presentation of AI for Medicine course, and the highlight here, it was even the AI model is 5 to 10% of the model itself, the project, because you have lots of things that you need to take account. Model performance, versions of the model, data labeling, all of that you need to have in account in the ML systems, machine learning systems. It's not just the machine learning model. You have to have this account when you go to with a specific model to production. Sometimes it's very good in publications and papers and archive, but when we go to production, there are lots of challenges that we have to take in account. Okay. Regarding the learning, I will part of this it will be based on the courses that the ONG has on deeplearning.ai. I will present this briefly. Machine learning. This is a very good course, very tough course. I've taken this course myself. I'm at the middle, and it will give you the basic for supervised learning and best practice. All you need to know is kind of a basic understanding of mathematics and matrix multiplication. All the theory and with practical examples as well, with tests that you need to make online are on the course. In fact, it was a course with already 3.1 million downloads. It's a very impressive and with a very good rating. 3.1 million students is very impressive. Then there are the courses for the deep learning. This deep learning specialization with 5 courses, 1 neural networks and deep learning, improve deep neural networks, machine learning project. Is part of how to structure, how to define what you're going to invest. Is the data overfitting, underfitting? All of this is addressing on this course. Then CNN, convolution neural networks, mainly for image recognition and all this type of algorithms associated with the image and sequence model, more like Alexa type or Google Echo type projects in order to identify from speech. You try to identify insights associated with the speech. This last one is AI for medicine. You need to take this first one first before you go to that, but it's specific to medicine, how you can transform medicine in the diagnosis, in prognosis and treatment using AI. It's very interesting course as well. Just a brief overview regarding the libraries that are available on the market. TensorFlow is from Google. You can run existing models, retrain existing models, and you develop basically with kind of a JavaScript oriented model. Okay. There is also a course in the deeplearning.ai specific to TensorFlow. Normally, of course, TensorFlow can implement these models, and it's good for production-ready applications. But it's good also to understand first what is behind the model. Otherwise, you are going only to choose a model, you know, if it works or not, but you don't know the theory and all the issues associated behind that. So it's better to first have the theory and then take this TensorFlow in practice course. This is a more advanced TensorFlow course as well, and is also part of the deep learning course offer. Scikit-learn is also a framework to learn machine learning. Normally it's for people that like Python. Okay, there are lots of very good mathematical libraries already optimized. It's open source, no costs, and you can have this kind of utilization classifiers, regressions, clustering of the information, model selection, preprocessing. All of this is available. It's just a question to explore. PyTorch, very oriented to go from research to production ready. You can integrate with lots of existing cloud service. It's just a question to have the account on these clouds and integrate for your application. And there is also a pre-trained model repository there that you can integrate and leverage your applications with that. Just a brief talking regarding AI jobs. There is a lot of areas associated with AI. Here we are talking more specifically to the machine learning, okay? And you can have different roles here. If you go to from the data engineering to the AI infrastructure, you have lots of, you can have kind of a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, a data analyst with these different areas, a software machine engineer, machine learning researcher. So there are different, as of today, different jobs and with different skills. So when you say that you are working AI, this could mean different things. And this was based on a Coursera report. I could share the report later. It's also Coursera is also an institution from deeplearning.ai. Elia, I don't know if you are in the call now. And of course there are some.
Hello, good morning. Yes, I am.
I have your slide here, so you feel free to comment your slide.
When Carlos told me about this meetup, we first thought that we should talk about all the arising jobs and the skills that are coming up currently and nowadays. So we thought to talk about data scientists and data engineers and so on. But in the last week, we thought that it would probably be better and most disruptive to talk about other kinds of jobs that are about to arise nowadays regarding EA. I'm not talking about current jobs that you'll find today in the LinkedIn and so on in the other jobs platform, but I'm talking about jobs that will be the jobs that are to be in the next 10, 20 years from now on. And I selected 4 of them, and these 4 jobs are ones that will have a major impact in our lives. If you think about building up and the construction process of the artificial intelligence, these are the jobs that will have a correspondence for each step. Some of them might not yet exist, and some of them might also have been created recently, okay? So, but one thing is for sure, these jobs are here to stay, and they probably will have a high demand in the incoming years. The first one that I chose is the personality designer. If you think of a personality designer, you are thinking about the architecture of that logarithm or that artificial intelligence. And the personality designer, it's in the beginning of the process of building effectively that artificial intelligence logarithm. So if you think of theory, I'm a big, huge fan of Siri. I use it quite often. Its personality is not an accidental, and certainly it's the work of a personality designer. So these are the professions and these are the skills that are called upon to build and perfect these virtual assistants for us. So they have also this kind of job, the personality designers. They have an important role to play, as they are the ones who actually define the architecture and all its algorithms. So they provide, in fact, they provide the foundations of what an artificial algorithm will be, and they also provide that they are understood by us, the users, and they are pertinent and useful for all of us. So if you are thinking to become a personality designer, you have to have also not only a deep knowledge of algorithms and technology, computer language skills, but you also have to have some knowledge, I would say a deep knowledge of also psychology, okay? So the next job that we have selected is EA writer. So the EA writer job is to create a character for that algorithm, for that artificial intelligence, and to try to make it as human as possible. So their job, in fact, is to make everything consistent. If you think of the writer job, you might think it as a screenplay director and an actor that is trying to play their role. You have to work and to find out a precise wordage, behavior, tone of voice, and so on. And the ultimate challenge for the EA writer is to provide that algorithm some kind of emotions, to bring it as close as a human being as possible. So that's their major challenge. To be an EA writer, you also have to have not only skills regarding computer and mathematic skills, but also you need to be a marketing expert. You have to be highly empathetical. You have to have these kind of skills in order to imagine what the user is expecting, what are their needs. So creativity and imagination are also skills that will be indispensable for this kind of job. The next one, the ethicist. Now we are talking about the ethics within the artificial intelligence. And once you have defined the architecture by the personality designer, once you have created the character that is regarding the AI writer, that you have the basis of that artificial intelligence, it's time now to confirm that it really fits into the ethical code of our society, okay? So that it's when the company is called upon the intelligent ethicist. So, as Carlos have been said, artificial intelligence has already raised several ethical questions, and in the coming years, I suppose it will be producing more mass quantities as we are going to produce in massive quantities. We are going to live with it currently during all our days. So we need to also to rethink the place of artificial intelligence within humanity, and to try to overcome some of the questions and some of the major challenges that might be arising. So that will be the work of this ethicist. And they will have a particular important role in large technology companies. And they will judge the ethics of each and every action of the algorithms that are being created. So they need to work close together with the marketing and all the management teams in order to safeguard those companies' outputs and ethics. So besides of being trained with technologies, they also have to acquire some other kind of skills regarding law, administration, management, and so on in order to perform their duties. Finally, we have set everything up. We have to put our artificial intelligence algorithm into the market. So what's the next step? It's to make it autonomous. And this is where the EA coach comes in. So the EA trainer, it's a new job, and Carlos has also had speak about it. And the artificial intelligence will need to be trained and need to be trained in an effective form. It must learn how to recognize objects, improve its understanding of human language, for instance, learn to identify emotions, and so on. So this algorithm, and the main purpose is to try to improve the artificial intelligence logarithm, because he won't do it alone by itself, so he needs to be trained. Its mission is to teach all the platforms to become autonomous, and several companies has already dozens of specialists in this field. And his main purpose will be to guide the machines in the process of learning themselves and to improve themselves. So to become an AA coach, you must only not know the different computer languages, but also to use them perfectly. Finally, I just want to regard that most of these jobs that I have been talking about, accordingly to the Dell and Institute for the Future, 85% of these jobs won't even exist by 2030. But we all expect a rapid development of new technologies. So it might be possible that a few years from now, you might find some articles regarding this and some job research also regarding this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your participation. Since we are a little bit late on the agenda, I will propose not to have this break now, and we are go directly to the presentation of Antonio Alegria. Antonio, you can now share your screen if you have your presentation ready.
All right. Let me see.
We can see you, just not your slides, but okay, great.
What's up? All right. Let me see. Can I share my video?
I think
Right.
yes, but you need to have the account, the audio.
Never mind then. Never mind. Just to be a little bit more engaging, but that's okay.
The teaser. It was a teaser that you have in video.
All right. Thank you everybody for being here and for taking your time and taking the time out of your precious weekend to just engage in this very interesting community. And thank you to Carlos for driving this and having the idea and moving this forward for us to host the first Pi and AI meetup in Lisbon. So I'm Antonio. I'm head of AI at OutSystems. Essentially, I'm leading the artificial intelligence group at OutSystems that is focused on a breadth of different things related to AI, from product strategy, product management and execution, engineering, and interestingly, research and development as well of the core capabilities that allow us to really use AI and to evangelize AI within the organization. A little bit like Carlos mentioned in the maturity model of AI. That's something we also believe in a lot. So today I'm going to talk to you about how OutSystems has applied AI and done research on AI to improve its own product, which is a software development product, a very particular kind of software development product. how we did it, the challenges, how we approached it, what are the opportunities, things like that. We're also going to talk a little bit, some things are going to be a little bit more technical. I try to not go too technical here. I'm going to mention some things we've been doing in deep learning in particular, and how that can be applied to guide, automate, or validate software developers' work. So this is an exciting emerging area of research and development, and one that we're pushing at OutSystems. I'm not sure if we're going to have time for questions, but if so, I will ask everyone to save them for the end or leave them in the chat. Okay. So starting off, just to give a bit more context, if we look back at human history, we see that the creating tools and using tools were key in our progress through several inventions, through several iterations over time. And software actually became the ultimate tool. It really opened up a lot of innovation, opened up societies, allowed for the great globalization, globalized business and communication we have today, from computers through to the internet. It drove great achievements. And this is why, a few decades ago, and time goes by fast, Mark Andreessen coined the term that software is eating the world. And essentially, we know today that every business is, in one way or another, a software business. Every company is a software company. All the processes, all of the innovation, all of the competitive dynamics you see in the market today, a lot of it is driven by digital systems and computers and the internet and these digital tools, right? And tools to create software also evolved. Right? You have increasingly better abstractions, increasingly better programming language, increasingly better tools in cloud computing and Kubernetes and Swift UI, and even low-code development platforms like OutSystems. And in particular, low-code development platforms are one of the biggest improvements in how companies can deliver quality software with great agility. So these platforms, such as OutSystems that you're seeing on the screen, are essentially, you can think of them, if you're not familiar with them, they are full life cycle development platforms, meaning they take care of everything you need to do from a software development standpoint, from the UI to the logic to the data, deployment, continuous integration, continuous delivery, so all batteries included. And you have a very visual and powerful way of programming. So instead of coding using text, we actually have this visual language for you that you see on screen, for you to really customize what your application needs to do or your system needs to do. And from our experience, this makes projects from 6 to 10 times faster from experience with customers. Interestingly, Gartner predicts that by 2024, low-code application development will be responsible for over 65% of application development activity. So it's really something that is taking on the market, and it's really opening up. It's like the next stage of software development tools that is really enabling a lot of companies to become software companies. And one thing that's important also for this talk and for you to realize is that these kinds of platforms, such as OutSystems, is that they open up development to a lot of people without engineering backgrounds. And that we have a lot of stories, great stories of people that change their careers from, civil engineering or architecture or chemistry, things like that, or even non-scientific, science-based, STEM-based backgrounds. And they can change their careers very successfully, earning more, having more fun. And this is because it lowers the barrier of entry for you to develop great apps. In any case, and taking this to the next level, OutSystems' goal is to make every company what we call a cloud software company. So a cloud software company for us is a company that is able to be at the leading edge of the best practices and capabilities and agilities in delivering software solutions, just like Google, just like Uber, just like Amazon, all of these disruptors that are coming into the market and disrupting incumbents, who have a lot of experience in the business, a lot of expertise, but maybe they have a lot of legacy and they do not have the agility typically, and the skills and the capability and the tools to respond and to really create these very disruptive systems. And so what OutSystems' goal is to allow every company to operate at this top level, and every company becoming a cloud software company. And for us, what that means is that all of our customers should be able to create amazing customer experiences, like the best you've seen, to be extremely agile in responding to business needs and be very quick to respond, and to build their software and the digital platforms with very modern and extensible architectures with no technical debt. But at the basis of all of these things, that to allow every company to really be super proficient in delivering software at scale, is that we want to enable everyone to effectively become a top talent. So everyone to operate at the level of the top level of the market, like the MIT, PhD, Google engineers, but everybody being able to operate effectively at that level in terms of what they output, by creating amazing experiences with extreme agility and with great quality and architecture with no legacy. But currently, what we see is that to become an effective software developer, to become a top talent, it takes a lot of time, and it takes going through several projects and experiences to be able to learn the best practices and to deal with the more complex tasks such as architecture design, refactoring, high performance database tuning, etc. Even when you use a platform such as OutSystems that already lowers the barrier of entry, there's room for us to really take that down even further, we believe. And one thing we also see is that in the field is that projects still benefit a lot from having a seasoned expert to really show the value and the ability of the platform and to achieve stellar results. They are crucial to unblock and teach novices to do code reviews, to analyze the architecture and refactor code, to solve the toughest engineering challenges. But as we know, in everything in life, becoming an expert takes a lot of time, takes you going through a lot of projects, starting building the pattern matching in your mind, starting to understand complexity, so that when you see a new problem, you can take your experience and you can more quickly get to a solution. So that led us to think and ask, what if we could train a machine and package the same expertise gleaned from thousands of projects and data points we see from the data we have, and embed this in the product so that every project and every company can have their own virtual expert out of the box inside the product. So that's the kind of the vision that we set out to achieve. And our vision is precisely that, to make every developer a top talent by creating a virtual expert that we embed in the product and that amplifies every developer's effective skill, powering up everyone and leveling the playing field. So we consider skill to be a sum of autonomy, speed, agility, and output quality. And what we're trying to do is by infusing this artificial expert, by infusing this AI that learns from all of these projects and code we've seen in automated fashion, we can essentially level up every developer in every skill level, but particularly the novices and the explorers, the people who are still starting, who do not have yet the patterns built into their brain. It's true that lowering the skill is a goal for a lot of different products and for a lot of product managers and engineering teams. So it begs the questions, where exactly can AI help? And so we looked at this, and essentially you could reduce the skill needed and you could amplify the capabilities of people using a product like a software development tool by improving the usability, improving the user experience, providing better documentation, or by improving the language, the programming language and the frameworks, which is essentially, these are essentially the vectors we've seen evolving in the software development market. Like you see, first, you start with very crude programming languages, they evolve, you get better tools, and then you end up with Swift UI, you end up with low-code development platforms, you end up with Kubernetes and AWS and all of those things. So these are improvements in abstractions and in usability. Where AI can be applied is that is a very scalable way to attack complex domains where engineering and creating a specific engineering solution built from the ground up to fix that is expensive or intractable. And when you're developing software, you know that every team does things a little bit different, a little bit custom, and that long tail of differences and corner cases is enough for it to be very hard to create a standard solution for everybody, where you could just go through a wizard or a configuration. You would immediately hit a wall and you won't really be able to extract value from it. And so we think AI can help by in three different ways. And these three different ways are actually, we think, the three different ways that a technical lead or an expert helps in a team, apart from people management and all of those things, and managing stakeholders. So we believe that this AI assistant can help by guiding, for example, by identifying that the developer is stuck, is lost, doesn't know what to do. And for example, when they're trying to implement certain pattern, like database synchronization, and providing them with documentation or actual help step and an actual step-by-step tutorial for what they're trying to do. It can automate by automatically, for example, generating this thing they're trying to implement. They're trying to implement a database synchronization or caching mechanism. So maybe we can understand that, we can understand the context, and we're just going to do that for them. Or we can validate. So this is kind of the code review task that tech leads do, which is we want to analyze the code, analyze that implementation that they did, alert developers whether they're doing things in a bad way, and propose better ways to do that to them. And for us, these three pillars are essential in what an AI-assisted development capability should provide. And the market agrees. So Gartner predicts that by 2022, AI, 40% of all projects, software development projects, will have one AI, what they call co-developer or an AI team member working alongside them by 2022. And from our own research, we've seen that the OutSystems developer community considers that AI assistants, over 60% consider AI assistants as extremely or very important for them and for the value they can take from the platform and for the ability they can have. And more interestingly, over 80% of them actually value the validation part of the equation. How can AI help me produce code with better quality, with lower technical depth, with better reliability? This, they consider that to be the kind of the most important factor of it all. And so, taking all of this into account, all of this context and the mission of OutSystems, we created an R&D group inside OutSystems to really push the boundaries of what is possible in this area. And we've done it. So the first thing we did was, we created this research and development team. We started running some pilots. We're starting looking at papers. We're starting looking at the data we had internally. And we always try to work in a very integrated way between research, engineering, and product, so that we can test these capabilities as soon as possible with real users, get feedback, and really push the AI virtual circle, like Carlos was saying. And so the first thing we shipped and we started with was what we generically called AI-assisted development or AI-assisted logic development. And so this is a capability built into our development environment that provides inline next step suggestions in whenever you're programming your logic flow, anywhere in the flow. So it gives you between 1 and 6 suggestions on what you will need next, and with over 90% accuracy. And the more interesting thing and challenging thing is that these suggestions are actually specific to your business logic. This means it's able to suggest things to you that it has never seen before in training data. And there's some complexities, technical details here. I'm not going to go over there. But instead of just giving you generic suggestions, or perhaps you want to do an if statement, or you perhaps want to fetch data from a database, it actually can tell you, you want to fetch data for this for customer by ID, for example, or any specific data entity you have that it has never seen in training. And so it also attempts to autofill all of the node properties and the data fields, and the models are evolving every week. So this first capability was the first one we kind of really worked on and took to product and shipped, and which actually helped us evolve our core technology of neural networks and deep learning. And the kind of deep learning capabilities we're using are like one of the more advanced ones. We use graph neural networks, which are you can really apply deep learning not to images, not to tabular data, not to a text, but to a graph, a complex graph that represents the code. And this is kind of one of one of the things we believe we're going to start seeing become mainstream or in the next couple of years, and we're adopting and successfully using this in production. So this capability is actually used by over a third of our logic users every month. We've evolved the maturity of the AI behind it to go from suggesting just a simple generic next step, like this is an if statement, just fetch data, to be able to be very specific, fully configured next steps. And our vision for the near future, which you can see in this animation, it's not out yet, but it's something that we have in our vision and we're working towards, and we believe we can reach there, is to really understand the patterns and the context and the intent of the user, and completely pre-fill a set of code for what you want here. So here you can see an example where someone wants to implement something to implement a search through a scan barcode. So you have a product listing screen and you take a picture to a barcode and it immediately filters the list based on that. And here we're able to infer that that's the intent of the user, and you completely fill the code for them, adapted to the screen and the UI that they have. So this can really accelerate this capability. So since this is an emerging area of application of AI, we really had to start small, start simple, and iterate a lot. And so you can see a huge difference in our artificial expert from the first version that we kind of started testing with users to the version we had at the end of last year. So initially, like I said, we only suggested very high level, vague next steps that people needed to go through and configure each step of the way. And now we can provide very specific, fully configured steps, or mostly configured steps. And so the acceleration starts to get better and better and better. And the most interesting thing is that through the virtuous circle and feedback loop we get, we can get better and better, and the assistant starts getting more specific and more adapted to what you need. So this brings us to the question, how do we actually train an AI tech lead? So this is actually a big scientific and engineering challenge, and we're traversing uncharted waters, really. We're one of the few R&D groups really trying to push the envelope here, together with Microsoft Research in Cambridge, Facebook AI, DeepMind, JetBrains, instead of just adding a few tactical AI applications for show. And that is shown by the techniques and the capabilities that we're using, and the ability we've had of iterating and evolving these capabilities. One of the big challenges is that code is very complex. The domain is very big, and the flexibility is incredible. There's huge variation in how everyone does things. So this makes it way more complex than natural language processing or image recognition. And so it requires us to think differently than classical AI applications. Just to give you an idea, this is a representation done by Gary Tarlow, a researcher in Google Brain, on how AI applied to source code and software development artifacts fits into the general maturity of the different domains. On the x-axis, you can see like the amount of data we have to work with, and on the y-axis, you see what's the maturity and use cases you have really out there to test and to see. And so you can see in the extreme, in the top right-hand corner, you see image, text, and video and speech. It's kind of the things that are more mature and have received the most investment. And software development is really breaking up. It's breaking in, starting to reach the point where it's starting to become really viable and transformative. And that's really where we are. And we are one of the teams pushing this forward, pushing this up, and pushing this to the right as well. So one thing I'd like to do here is give you a sense on the iterative nature of us evolving the brain behind the assistant we shipped, and how the capabilities we've built, because we're using these capabilities of deep learning and AI, allow us to not only attack a very specific domain of giving assistance in that user interface in our tool, to then take that capability, take that brain, and then transport it to a different domain and reuse the learnings it had. So this is a very scalable way of evolving these systems. So we start with the knowledge foundations, and we start from the data always. We also try to look ahead at what we're trying to achieve in the medium term, and research the state of the art and assess if we're confident of achieving the results we set out to do. And so we continuously evolve the algorithms and use increasingly more data through dozens of experiments. And so if we see from the beginning where we started from data from about 33 million functions, like you can call it functions, so code, routines, functions, whatever you want to call them, which expand to 21 million micro patterns of code that we have. And the first thing we did was we created a model that was able to predict the next step, very generic next step. So you want to execute an action. An action is like a function. You want to call a function. Then we continued iterating, continued learning, continued evolving the algorithms. And we were able to say, not only you want to call a function, but you actually want to call this function for this kind of data entity. You actually want to create a customer in your database. Continue working on it. And now we can say, you want to create a customer with the name John Smith, right? Continue iterating, continue learning, continue researching. And then the brain starts getting a little bit better. And now we can use this capability as well, not only to suggest the next step, but we also can use this to really understand the patterns of code and understand how people implement, for example, a pattern of creating data and synchronizing with your Salesforce system or wherever your ERP is. And this is kind of diverging on it's creating a better capability for analyzing code as well. And then so you can transfer this capability to now implement a different use case completely in your product. So now you can have this capability to analyze code and help in code reviews, for example. Or you can continue evolving the next step suggestions, and then you can reach the vision that I was talking about, where you say, you actually want to do all of this set of code, and I'm going to code all of these steps for you at once. You could also take this capability and apply it to a different kind of data set. You can apply it to UI and data. And we can do this because we use these graph neural networks, this graph deep learning capabilities, which essentially operates over a graph. So as long as you can model your data as a graph, which you can do in our code, and actually any code can be modeled as a graph, we can also model the UI as a graph. And so we can take advantage of the same capabilities and start evolving it to a different domain. And as you go, the brain gets bigger, it can handle different domains, it can handle different things. But the most important thing, the big takeaway, is to be very iterative and create the core capabilities that can evolve over time. And so this is actually a core model for AI applications, which was very popularized by Andrew Ng from Deep Learning AI. So to get better AI and accelerate the AI capabilities and maturity, you really need to ship simple functionality early, integrate it in the product, have users testing it, focus on getting a feedback loop to get the models better and better. And the better these features get, the more users you get, the more data you get. So you get the flywheel going. Just to summarize how we drive all of these capabilities. So our approach and path has followed two technical pillars. One is associated with the use of graph neural networks. So graph deep learning, it's a bleeding edge technique and capabilities for doing deep learning. But more interestingly, and I like that Carlos mentioned that machine learning and deep learning is just a part of AI. But we say we use AI because we really do. We don't just use deep learning and machine learning. So we pair this with other techniques in AI, more classical AI, more logic-based AI. One of the techniques we use is called automated reasoning, which is more predictable and is really able to do some very interesting things paired with machine learning. And so we take the power of classical AI with the power of data and machine learning to really create a more capable brain. From a product perspective, we always start from data. We start from foundations. So we start from, okay, what are the foundations that people learn when they're trying to program? Okay, it's how to program logic. So let's start with that. And let's start with the data we have. Let's build from that. And let's build on the AI virtuous circle and focus on creating the feedback loops, even maybe changing the product to maybe collect more data from the users, like explicit feedback, things like that, so that the brain can evolve and grow. So let me just go very quickly, because I'm already over time, on what things we're working on as well on top of that. So one thing we're working on, and you're going to that that evolved from this capability I showed in the OutSystems product is what we call Code DNA. So this is an engine for code understanding and pattern detection and learning. So this can identify what are the common patterns, how people are actually using the product, how are they coding things differently, how are they coding things in a similar way. And we can use this not only to improve the product from an analytics standpoint, but also to support the kinds of capabilities that would be more in line with helping code reviews and helping validate the code. Another area more on the guidance side of it is we're working on understanding how we can provide just-in-time contextual help for novices, giving them orientation whenever they are stuck. So we want to try to detect, we try to understand, okay, this user seems to be lost, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to do it. Let me try to give some help. Let me try to understand what it needs. Let me try to give it some help and block them, or perhaps automate the work that they're trying to do. And one other thing we're doing very interestingly together with Carnegie Mellon University and Técnico and Nova here in Portugal is to really think and research, push the boundaries of what we can do from a programming standpoint, but without code. So how can you actually program things that are custom logic or UI or whatever, without actually having to write code, perhaps using natural language or drawing something or giving examples or things like that. So that's something our research team is also working on together with these universities. There are some very interesting things we've been able to validate and prototype and test. And what we're really trying to do is push the boundaries of what is possible in terms of software development, really transforming software development by infusing AI into the process. Not to replace, but to aid, to amplify the developer skill, let them focus more on the more creative tasks, the more value-added tasks in their work. So overall, this was a very kind of compressed view on what we did, why we did it, and where we're going. I hope this was interesting, and I hope this gives you a little bit of more idea on how to implement and use AI and apply AI in the product sense in a very emerging and pushing the boundaries way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio. It was very insightful, and I think you present the real challenge that we have when we try to bring AI for a specific problem in an organization. I will propose now a break, since we didn't have the last break, and I will propose to get back online at 12 o'clock with the panel. Okay, see you in 20 minutes. Okay, back into the session. The idea of this part of the session is to having a panel with to discuss these hot AI topics. Leading that panel will be Miguel Lopes, and we have these participants on the panel that will. Oh, okay, Hamilcar are now on the session.
I need to change this, don't I?
You are in the moon. Great. Miguel, do you want to introduce some topics here?
Sure. So thank you for having me here. Same thing on the video, depends on where they want to grant the access. I have the same problem. So I'll get started, guys. I think anybody interested in AI has had a ton of good info and coverage today. Practical cases like Antonio Alegria, I guess, make it more real. And this session now is a different one where I think we have the opportunity to learn from different angles, very, very different angles and points of view on the potential impact of technology such as AI into society, into industry, into everything that affects us around us. So we really have the luck to have here Milcar, Sophia, Ricardo, and Pedro. Those will be the four panelists. I'll be rotating here with some questions. Actually, Sophia will have a bit of a tight window to join us because of that events that Carlos mentioned. So she'll join us in about 15 minutes. But we basically have this incredible set of panelists for this reason. Carlos organized this in a way we can hear people from the angles of what's the impact in, for example, areas of jobs and universal income eventually, and other topics that we'll discuss with Amilcar. We have Sophia, who we can query on areas about related to ethics and specifically accountabilities, responsibilities. Where do we divide the line between humans and machine, in this case in software? And a completely different angle coming to Ricardo from a humanist point of view of how to look at these from a person, human in the picture. And finally with Pedro, Denise, in terms of examples of learning and applying this for business in different services. Okay, so let me go around to Amilcar. Amilcar, thank you for joining us. I know you research a lot of advanced things for how is the future of our economy looking like, with people in the future having to work less, supposedly because technology is doing more. And so I hear many times as seeing the journalists just focus on robots, and I keep saying, forget the robots. The problem is the software bits. That's the challenge. What do you see as the biggest challenges that are coming with AI in terms of foreseen impact in jobs and employment and the work you're researching on?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation and thank you for the questions, Miguel. Well, I am a skeptic on this. As you mentioned, there's a lot of debate going on in OECD, World Economic Forum, about the impact of automation, i.e. AI and robotization on jobs, and whether this will mean that we're going to get less jobs. I am skeptical on this for various reasons. One, if we look more broadly at historical developments, the Industrial Revolution, the introduction of electricity, of telecommunications, the introduction of internet, you didn't see a massive loss of jobs. What you saw was a restructuring of the economy. Of course, we're going to have short-term impact in the sense that some sectors will destroy jobs, but others will create jobs. The second reason why I'm skeptical about the idea that we're going to lose a lot of jobs is that actually for a lot of developed economies and countries, what we're facing in the next 50 years is actually a period of not population growth, but population stabilization, or for countries like Portugal, of population decrease. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So actually the challenge for us, I've said this in various outlets, what I'm afraid of is that it's not that that robots or AI will steal jobs, is that they don't arrive soon enough so that we can compensate the loss of people we're going to have in the labor market and to keep current levels of production. That for me is a much more deeper problem.
So you're underestimating the ability of AI to reproduce itself compared to the rate of humans to reproduce themselves.
Possibly. The question is, there are going to be obvious short-term events. Let me just add a third reason why I'm skeptical. If you look at recent years with the growth of IT and how it's permeating various sectors of economic activity, one would expect that in the past 20 years, we would have seen a massive increase of productivity across the world. Massive. Everybody started working with computers. Everybody's doing stacks of things on the internet. We are now moving to classes being done on the internet. But then if you look at the average rate of growth of productivity in the past 15 years, and of course, part of that was the big recession. but productivity is not increasing. One of the biggest problems we're actually facing right now economically is that productivity does not increase. If productivity does not increase, salaries won't increase. And we're entering this kind of negative cycle that we were supposed to be getting out of in the last 2-3 years until this crisis happened. So I would be very skeptical about the idea that actually AI will destroy jobs. But still, we could consider how that can happen. There's a recent OECD studies that suggest that the impact of, and they haven't distinguished between robotization and AI. Okay, so that's one of the problems that we have with the current evidence on this, is that they tend to take the two things in common, so robotization and AI together. What this OECD study would suggest is that, one, there's big variations in how automation will impact on jobs. Okay, so certain countries, by the nature of the sectors and the type of economies they run, will be more affected than others. What do I mean by that? We'll have countries that are already very, very focused on high-skilled sectors will be less affected by the jobs impact of automation, AI, robotization. Countries that rely more on middle-skilled qualifications, like Germany, Portugal, Greece, Spain, will possibly be at a higher risk of being affected by the substitution of jobs by automated sources of production. There's also variations in the level of risk. Okay, so what this OECD study would suggest is that the risk varies between countries, but the level of risk also varies between countries. So for instance, countries that would be less in lower levels of risk, even the type of risk would be lower than what other countries would face. What do I mean by this? For instance, for countries like Greece and Germany, the study would suggest that the impact of automation would be twofold. Given half of it would be a significant rise in the risk of automation, and half of that effect would be a very high risk. Okay, so a very substantive part of the working population would be subjected to this high risk of substitution. By jobs, the risk would be lower, and it will be a less intensive risk. Okay, so there's huge diversity in how AI would impact jobs.
What about, apologies, but then in that line of thought, if we are talking about risk, which is funny, remember we started with technology as potentially being a good thing, and now here we are talking about black swan almost types of moments. So what about then the human side of the equation here from a society big picture point of view? So you research things about policies, government policies, potentially income, whether universal income or not, some kind of job guarantees. So let's assume that countries are affected differently. What do you see that is starting to be considered as options for the impacts of this in society and economy at large?
You know, it's quite curious. I started my PhD 20 years ago. And my PhD over time, part of it was actually about the topic of creating a basic income, whether we should or not. And there are two things that, so this debate about basic income is already more than 20, 30 years. Okay? All of the options that we're discussing now, which are, one, either we create a basic income, i.e. everybody gets a given monthly fee or annual fee by the government, to which they can add income from work, or if they decide not to work, they don't work. Okay. The second option would be a work guarantee, i.e. the government secures that the possibility that everybody can have a job. Okay, that means creating jobs in not-for-profit activities. We're talking about some things like care. This could be actually a solution for Portugal, in the sense that we have massive problems in care. If anything, COVID-19 has shown that the reason why a lot of people have died in care homes is because they're not adequately staffed. So we have nurses going around from hospitals to nursing homes and nursing homes to hospitals, transmitting the virus. And nobody thought, oh, actually, we have a human resources problem here. Okay, so an idea would be to create a work guarantee. A third idea that has been discussed in parallel with these two is work sharing. Okay, i.e., we reduce the number of hours that people are required to work to get a full salary. That opens up the possibility that we can expand the number of jobs. Okay, all these ideas have been in discussion since even the 1980s. Okay, so that's almost just after I was born. In France, there's been a huge debate about this coming from the 1980s as a response to the great inflation episodes of the 1970s and to the crisis that followed in the 1980s. The basic income idea has gained a lot of attention recently in previous years, which has been a surprise for me. In part, this is driven by there's a lot of people in the tech industry in the US that has been very, very keen on the idea, very supportive of the idea. And crucially, some center-right parties are starting to think of a basic income as a solution for an alternative model of social protection. And that's why, for instance, you saw a center-right government in Finland trying out a basic income scheme. It wasn't a true basic income scheme, but and it was more about benefit simplification. But still, it was a basic income scheme, and it was run by a center-right government, which admittedly it cut it off in the middle before the trial was done. It was able to be completed.
Well, they had apparently good reasons for it, right? It seems it's hard to contain experiments in economies separate from the rest of the planet around them, right?
Yeah, I have to say, I know people. Strangely enough, the guy that was overseeing the pilot was one of the guys in my PhD Viva. So was one of my examiners in the PhD.
That's
Viva.
outstanding.
Yeah. No, he was in Lisbon 2 years ago. And we were reminiscing about that the same questions that we discussed in my Viva about the basic income, the community, whilst it's grown in importance and relevance politically and policy-wise, it's still not able to deal with the key questions that the basic income deals with, which is at the heart of the basic income is the idea that it's about real freedom, i.e., the ability that you can do whatever you want. And part of that real freedom is the freedom not to work. Okay. Now this raises a policy problem, i.e., which has been crossing the debates in this community about basic income, which is at what level do you determine the basic income? How much should someone get per month? Because if you raise it to a level that allows a person to decide not to work, then it becomes really expensive and physically unsustainable, right?
I hear there are some countries already doing that in the Middle East or something like that.
How about training people in this transition instead of giving only a basic income?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of basic income. I think there's a lot of gaps because of exactly of that. If it's to do what it's supposed to do, it's too expensive. That's one of the areas where I find it more difficult to give you an answer because it's really difficult to implement. It's very difficult to retrain people. If there's something that we have failed throughout most of the past 20, 30 years is to put in place, and I'm not talking about Portugal only, but in most cases, the effectiveness of retraining programs is very low. Okay? The market tends to adjust, not by retraining people, but by sending people out of the labor market and bringing new people in, rather than retraining. And that for me is actually going to be a big challenge, how we retrain people. In my view, we should really invest for that. We should, more than that, we should be training our kids to program from first basic after fourth. Like I haven't been able to do that, but I'm starting to teach my kid to do some programming with some online databases, because I think that's going to be the key task.
Eventually in our
If you
systems.
see this as a long-term,
So wait, but for a second, but then Antonio is telling you that he's making it easier for software to program itself.
Even
now you're going to
programming
get your kid out of a job. No, I'm kidding.
even programming itself will
But
be
to your point, it seems, Amilcar, then that it would actually be a good idea to apply AI to the big problem you mentioned of retraining people. It seems like humans are difficult firmware to be updated. So that would be indeed a complement. And it seems that type of idea Antonio Alegria presented with some tools helping humans to not necessarily learn faster, but be able to do in their job things more easily. It seems that augmenting the humans is a good way to go to your training.
Yeah, absolutely. That has been actually one of my concerns. So my work in recent years has been mostly focused on the impact of demographic aging in the welfare state and in the labor market. What I see as, for me, what has to be the part of the response to the impact of demographic aging is actually automation. It's AI, it's robotization. It's something we haven't discussed much, but bioengineering. No, not bioengineering. When, for instance, let me give you an example. One of the biggest problems we have in providing care to seniors is the fact there's a lot of turnover. Okay, it's a really hard job, physically hard, done mostly by women. Okay, and part of it is, for instance, having to clean and move seniors around with a lot of mobility limitations, right?
Yeah.
So the solution will have to, for us to deal with this, which is a massive problem. Like you cannot imagine how much turnover there is in this sector, and the difficulty in hiring people for this sector. But the solution will have to be some kind of exoskeleton that will help people. That will help people in their mobility in assisting seniors, rather than robots doing services for seniors. Because if what I've been told about robots is that robots can't feel. So if a robot doesn't have the sense of feeling, it can basically kill someone whilst providing care, or break their arm, right? So what you need is, so for me, I'm much more positive about the role of AI. I'm positive that AI can, for instance, provide us with a lot of efficiency gains in the public sector. A lot of the problems that we have now currently, for instance, we're having an issue with how are we not able to pay the furlough scheme to employers who need it right now? How are we taking so much time in paying in computing the value of pensions, because it takes almost 10 months for people to get their pension approved? A lot of this would have been avoided if the strategy over the past 10, 15 years would have been to really strengthen IT systems, and that involves also AI in the social security. And we haven't done that. So what happened was we lost a lot of people who were working in the machine, and they weren't replaced by new technology nor by new workers. So now we don't have enough people, and we don't have the IT systems in place to deal with this type of processes. So IT and AI would have been a hugely powerful tool for us to introduce massive gains in public administration. And what we can gain from that in terms of lower taxes and increased economic activity, that could be huge. So I'm not I don't see AI as a menace to public administration, to jobs. I actually see this as helping us to deal with the massive challenges that we have ahead of us.
Totally. So it's amazing. A lot of the things are in here. Carlos, you're trying to.
Yeah, I think Sophia is ready to
Is the
participate
microphone on for Sophia?
in the panel, but I think that Amilcar now is the host. So
No, I'm okay if someone comes in.
no, the host of the meeting. You should release the video thing.
Okay, I'll leave.
No, but Carlos, I think Sophia is right now as attendee, so you need to.
Yeah, that I'm going to promote Sophia to host.
Okay.
But
Okay, do you
I
need
need
to
to
leave
be
them?
the host to do that. I think some kind of
Or for a moment.
okay.
Okay.
I'm the host.
You're back the host, Carlos.
No, the host.
So I'll introduce Sophia. As I said before, Sophia is a professor also in IT from Queen Mary University in London, works in the Portuguese Army and cybersecurity and cyber defense. And so we are, when Carlos, you give me a signal, we are counting on her joining us.
Sophia
hopefully in the...
is on the meeting now.
Sophia, can you talk already?
Yes, I'm here.
Outstanding.
Okay.
Outstanding.
You have stopped my video, so I think I cannot be seen.
You know, Carlos is trying to steal the show. He just wants to see us.
Over complete control.
He's worried about the accountability of AI in this call. Well, let's take advantage of your time anyway, Sophia. We know you are in the middle of an event, and therefore this was a double duty, being present in two places at the same time. That's the beauty of virtual meetings. But thank you for joining us. And we just went over with Amilcar in a bunch of topics related to societal impacts and basic income and other things. And in your area of expertise, we'd be very interested in studies you have done regarding, well, especially in topics of law and accountability, intellectual property, and some other things. So we would like to start by asking you, what is the bleeding edge in terms of understanding of challenges of AI accountability? So we all understand that with the examples given by Carlos, there will be more and more uses of AI, say, as complementary to diagnostics in medical exams or other areas. And of course, the question has to be raised about the accountability of the results that come out of that. So what can you tell us about what's being discussed in that direction?
Hi, Miguel. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here and for the introduction. And this is a very fascinating topic, and I praise the initiative, and I congratulate you all, and in particular Carlos Cruz for this organization. And I would like to compliment everyone. I have a very limited time, as you have said, so I will go straight to your question. And I must say that there are so many legal challenges on artificial intelligence, but in fact, I would say one of the most important one is exactly the attribution, or as you have put it, the accountability for the actions or omissions of the automated machines when we are in the context of artificial intelligence. And that happens because of a particular characteristic that we have in those automated machines, and that is autonomy. That is something that we don't have in other machines. When we are in the context of artificial intelligence, we have autonomy. So machine learning, the logic rules, knowledge representation, etc., that makes it possible to have this autonomy where you have a machine that is able to perform tasks and learn from their activity or whatever, but we have an action or an omission that is from the automated machine itself. So that is what is really different in terms of a legal perspective, comparing with the analog world and what we have before the artificial intelligence. So whenever there is an action or an omission from this kind of automated machine with artificial intelligence, the question that we have is who should bear the legal consequences of these actions or omissions? And we have two different dimensions. Usually, we only refer to the dimension of liability. For example, who should be responsible for the damages of a car accident involving autonomous vehicles. But we have a very important dimension which should also be addressed. There is the dimension of ownership. For example, if we have in terms of creative activities, we should bear in mind that now, at the current moment, we already have paintings, but also music or sculptures that are created by machines itself. But we also have, for example, machines working in factories, so we have the results of several types of works created by the machine. So who should have the ownership of these results of things that are created by these machines? And there are multiple possibilities. So should it be the supplier of the hardware? Should it be the programmer of the software? Should it be the owner of the machine or the person who benefits from the machine? The supplier of the data. And when we talk about the data, which data? Because we have so many types of data. Should we discuss about the data on which the decision was based, or the data on which the learning process took place, for example? And when we are talking about the programmer of the software, we are talking about very complex software. So probably we will not have just one programmer. We will have multiple inputs from several persons, and then the machine will work on those initial algorithms or inputs that were given before. So there is a detachment from the origin, from the programmers, and from the results of the machine. So that raises very difficult questions when we ask who should be responsible, who should bear the legal consequences for the actions or omissions from the machine. In the dimension of liability on one hand, but also on the dimension of ownership on the other hand. So there are many solutions that have been rehearsed. By way of analogy, we have, for example, the regime of the product liability, when we say, well, the producer will be responsible for whatever the failure that the product may have, or, for example, the animal regime or the agent regime. There are multiple solutions that have been rehearsed, but there is a primary difficulty in all these regimes, because we have to know who controls the animal, or who controls the product, or who controls the commands given to an agent. So, so we come back to those old questions. Should it be who really is the producer, and which is the product? Should it be the software, the hardware, and what part of the software, or the data, and what part of the data? So that is the difficulty of finding a one-size solution for this problem.
So let me ask you something there. So I apologize to interrupt, but the feeling I'm getting now is that one of hiring that strategy consultant, I asked him for the time, and he asked me for my watch, because I asked you for questions and you'll ask 25 more questions. So let me get help for our panel and for our attendees here. Do we have some answers?
Yeah, Unfortunately, I have more questions than answers.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I have more questions. But there is an interesting solution that I would want to refer. I would like to refer here. In the European Parliament in 2017, there was a recommendation from the European Parliament to the European Commission in order to establish an electronic person status for automated machines. So whenever there was an action or an omission, we would say that it would be attributable to the machine itself. But I don't think that is a good solution for now. For now, that is a very strange solution. It raises so many other questions. So does it have assets in order to be liable, for example? Or if it is owner of a painting, for example, will it receive the income for exploring that painting, for example? So it raises more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
You keep asking me for my watch, so we give the time. No, understood. I have a tremendous curiosity, Sophia, in one topic that Amilcar approached briefly, and that is a few of us, for example, are engineers from background, electronic engineers, both dealt in learning with hardware and software. And the fundamental thing I could never understand from a legal point of view is the potential for a line to divide software from hardware in the sense of what you're describing. Meaning, when you mention machines and when you mention software, for example, the things with the programmer and so on, you read a lot about robots do this, robots do that. A lot of people watch the movie from Walt Disney, the Wall-E and the robot. And so on. But a reality is more and more, I mean, we talk to Siri, right? On the iPhone or use Google Assistant or something. There's no robot. There's just AI that is running.
Yeah, old-fashioned.
So are there ways, for example, the electronic person you were describing from the European Union, are there ways to separate the real use of what is a machine, where does the machine stop and where just pure software. Controlling? Because a machine is nothing more than a bunch of pieces of metal or plastic or electronics controlled by software. That's it. So where's the line? How do you define an electronic person? Are there ways to divide a line between software and hardware or machines? Is that possible today?
Yeah, in legal terms, we have to establish that division between the hardware, that should be just the physical parts, and then the software, that would be the logical part, the instructions that you give to that physical components that will make that machine work and do something to do some task. But in fact, it is harder and harder as the technology advances to, in practical terms, to be very clear in that division. But I believe that it is still possible today to say that, well, the failure was from the hardware, because it should have a lag in that machine, and it didn't have a lag. So it has a lag, but it wasn't structured enough in order to support all the weight that it has, for example. Or you can say, no, the hardware was okay, but the software, the instructions that were given in order to that kind of, I don't know, piece of machine to work wasn't properly done. So in legal terms, you have to, it's quite a difficult exercise, but I believe you still have to do it. Today you will have to do it. And in order to find someone that is liable or has the ownership of something, you will have to have that difficult task done.
Okay. So last question for you. I know your time is limited and we'll have to move on to the other panelists, but here's the biggest challenge I see going forward in legal terms then, which is, okay, you gave good examples where maybe an autonomous machine can be imputable for some actions or omissions. Maybe a piece of software programmed by a programmer, but could be inputable. What about software that is taking actions and decisions that has not been written by anybody because it's just based on data? So if you have that augmented cancer image recognition saying, well, we assess that this image of this person has cancer in their lungs, and that's the advice we give the doctor based on 125,000 images that I recognize as a data algorithm. There was no programmer involved. Nobody wrote that piece of advice ever. It was just pure data analysis and manipulation, like it was from recognizing cats in an internet image. So where are we going to define there the imputability for these cases?
So that is artificial intelligence, right? So you just pick the beginnings, and then the machine will do the rest, right? That's what you are saying, correct?
There's nobody writing it.
Yeah. No, at the beginning you could have something. You have to have something at the beginning.
You define the architecture, but then the data.
Just a data set.
Architecture is you should define the objectives of that software, and then it will do the rest, right? So at the beginning you will have something, and there are some papers that are being drafted at this moment. There are some from the European Union on that regard. And what they are now discussing is that you should have some regime that creates some liability rules for accountability for artificial intelligence engineers. So those who are responsible for putting in action those kind of automated machines. So at the beginning, when you create the machine, you should create a machine in order to avoid any accidents, in order to avoid bias in the decisions. And that is a very difficult rule, legal framework that will have to be created. Since there is that other problem of transparency, there is a moment where you don't know how the machine decides, not even the programmers. They don't know how the machine gets there. There are so many inputs, and it gets so complex that at the end, you really don't know what are the criteria for deciding. And that's one of the problems that we have here. So that is also something that the European Union says that it will have to be done to create a system that makes it easier to trace and control the machines. So classify all the machines to know which machines exist, who created the machines, in order to establish some links between the creation and the creators, and the machines that are based on artificial intelligence and which are going to act in our society. And then they try also to establish the need to develop ethical principles, code of conduct that we should all obey.
Very good. It's going to be a challenging world. It seems like we continue having more questions than answers.
Totally correct. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but
No.
I'm kidding.
More questions than answers.
Now I finally get it, Carlos, why we need AI is to answer all these questions.
To analyze this video in real time and answer.
Very much so. All right, Sophia. So I'm not sure if your time is tight. I'll move on a bit to the other panelists as well. So
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us here. Ricardo, would this be a good time to join you as well? Or
let me
Carlos,
hello.
Yes. Okay.
Are you listening?
Yes.
Okay.
Coming loud and clear. Ricardo, so very good. Thanks for joining us. We wanted now to shift gears completely away from questions of legalities, questions on society impacts and economy, and we want to look at what happens to the human soul. Is mankind described to be like in the movie WALL-E, to just float in a floating mattress and let the robots do all the work and the software make all the magic, and we can all just go slurp sodas and do nothing with basic income? and what will happen to the human soul? I mean, what is your perspective on this whole story?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Carlos for this invitation. I'm still thinking about why he even had this idea, because I'm an outsider. I feel like being outside looking in. I'm not a specialist. I know nothing technically about.
Great.
AI.
That's what we want. That's why we want you here.
Thank you.
How can we look at the ethical issues? How can we look
Okay,
at
so
the
now
people aspect?
I must warn you that this is just an experiment. I'm not constrained to what I'm going to say. This is like Kierkegaard's works. You have an author that doesn't account for his words. This is just an experiment, okay?
So don't play back your words in the recording ever again. This will be self-destroyed. That's okay.
Yes, that's it. That's the idea.
Okay. That's okay.
So first, I was thinking about just read some things. Then I thought about talking, but I think we don't have enough time. So I really am going to read. Okay.
Okay.
First question. How should we philosophically define the ethical status of any AI design device? Discussions about ethics and ethical status have always been controversial. In fact, if we go back some centuries ago, we can watch people discussing if Indians were humans or had any soul. A couple of years ago, white people discussed whether blacks should or should not be enslaved. And only some decades ago, they were granted citizenship. On the other hand, determinists and libertists still discuss about the nature of human action, and no one can assure something like free will. We still have no clue about what consciousness really is and works. Even so, I believe we are not discussing the sex of angels when we think about the ethical status of AI design devices, because quoting a character from Breaking Bad, shit happens. So when we think about the social impact of AI, we must consider the question about responsibility. In The Path of Jeremy Bentham, Peter Singer suggested that an ethical community implies the concept of sentience, that is, the ability of any entity to have subjective perceptual experience, something AI devices cannot experience, but only simulate. They cannot feel or have real emotions. They have neither pleasure nor pain. So, whenever address ethical questions on AI concerning responsibility, my opinion is that humans are the only agents responsible for whatever happens in this fascinating field. This is the first question. Feel free to make other questions.
No, I mean, basically, what do you believe then to be the main ethical issues? So you believe then there is even not a question of ethical issues because
well, there is responsibility. That is the main question, but that means we must have an ethical status. Who defines that? Humans must define it. I mean the point of view of an humanist, like Carl said. Yeah. That is the experiment here. What is the point of view of a humanist? Human being is the center of the thing. So we must be the ones to set the main issue. The main issue is responsibility, and machine cannot be accounted for it.
So your point is human values must be on this decision.
Absolutely.
Not
Absolutely.
only the
no
logic,
discussion about that.
the logic and the economics of that to make
Yes,
them become more
because
performant, but you need to take in account several human values, even at the A level. Otherwise, do not kill someone or something. At least this basic human assumptions must be built in from scratch from day one in any AI that you should implement.
yes,
And if you think that the society, you are build things in the society that are AI based, this will be very important for the society as well, right?
I
Freedom,
don't question the importance of AI. It's just not a question. We are facing a new phenomenon. We are facing a new time, and we cannot just deal it. It's impossible. We are facing. The question is: are we talking just about a tool or an agent? I believe there are factors on AI that can be considered not anymore as a simple tool, and that brings us to the next question about the other main ethical concern. I believe it's about transparency, but above all about predictability. In the chart Carlos showed in the beginning, concerns are mostly about transparency and other stuff. There is no topic about predictability, and for me, this is the core problem. We cannot downplay the question about transparency and predictability of algorithms. As Nick Bostrom stressed some years ago, because there are the two issues, these are the two issues that are potentially less controllable by humans in the future. We must have control. That is the same humanist point of view. And I stress again, I'm only thinking about this point of view, not, this is not my opinion, okay? Transparency is not the only desirable feature on AI. It is also important that AI algorithms taking over social functions be predictable to those they govern.
Ricardo, today we have this kind of deterministic algorithms, meaning for this input you will have this output. This is predictability. When you put AI in the equation and you have some kind of a design of a system, sometimes even AI experts cannot predict what will be the outcome of that system in specific circumstances, because there are millions of hypotheses, let's say, in variables, and they train with a subset, but it's impossible to use all the data in the world to train an algorithm. So that must be some kind of unexpected situation. And this predictability, in some cases, it will be difficult to have 100%.
I agree with you, but then you leave the humanist point of view. You start to think on a technological ground.
Yeah.
That is the problem here. I'm not saying we must do one thing or another. I'm just
to take in account.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's an experiment. What does humanists sees on AI?
Well, the fact is, it's coming to us, and we are all here. 7 billion, maybe these 7 billion humans in the planet are just little data points in a big AI algorithm that is the human planet.
That's right. So the problem is we were on a theocentric world till the Renaissance. Then we got an anthropological center.
Mhm.
And now we will have a digital center, I believe.
Or maybe a planet center, and we have to look
Yeah,
at
that's it.
we are
That's it.
just
That's
cells
right.
of a bigger being, right?
Is it
That's
the AI,
right.
the new God that control everything?
We can
Okay.
do some bets.
Yeah. So, Carlos, should I shift gears here for
Yeah, we are running out of time. Just
Yeah,
Ricardo?
that's it.
Thank you.
Thank
but
you very much.
We'll move on here for the final minutes, and thanking everybody with Pedro Diniz joining us from a more down-to-earth, pragmatic approach. Pedro, you've been working in many years of industries, software, hardware, telecom, and you need to see this nice, fluffy stuff put into practice. You're actually a learner yourself. You've been studying Cloudera and Andrewing, and here's our invitation to you is, what types of ideas are you getting where to put this into practice on a daily basis of work we do in the office, in selling products and services? Where do you get inspiration for seeing this put into practice in real life of a business user like yourself?
Okay, thank you for your invitation, Carlos, and also Miguel
Welcome.
for the question. Okay, it was a very nice experience to try to re-educate myself on the AI subjects, and I found that these massive online courses are very helpful because you have access to top mind about this subject like Anjan or others. So it's very easy if you want to enter this boat to find technical knowledge and business knowledge. Personally, I think that, and probably this is not a very passionate subject as the others that we have been listening, that companies and company owners and CEOs, they see every day in LinkedIn, on the news, that they need to be a digital company, and these crises help them to realize they really need to be a digital company, or using Antonio's words, they need to be a software company. But now we are telling them that they need to be an AI company or a data company. So they don't have at this time opportunity for big investments, but they know that the data they have will help them to reduce churn or to improve sales or to prioritize leads or to recruit people. So they need the data they have. The data they have are very important because the success of AI project is both from a technical feasibility and also from a business insight. You don't need to be a genius to understand that ice cream sells when the temperature goes up, but probably there are some hidden insights in the companies that only the business experts can help you. So I think this is an opportunity to address these owners and CTOs and CEOs of companies and proposing them to do pilots to explore their data and feeding them with technical expertise with the deep learning, for instance. And probably you won't get a data lake. Probably what you'll have is an Excel file that you need to then to correct all the data. But when we approach companies and we show them that the data are important, mainly for their activity, they can work with the companies like any integrator or even a consultancy company, then they can have quick results, like probably not the most valuable projects, but projects that are feasible. And mentioning Carlos about the AI cycle, they need to feel confident on the success of small projects, quick win projects, to engage with all the decision makers in the company. Of course, this, as Ricardo was saying, it's now a new paradigm. Even the data that were being used to train the algorithms, it's not valid anymore. People are not doing transactions outside their homes. People are buying more online, not in physical stores. But AI by itself needs to readapt and reinforce their robustness.
It's
So
even a challenge for AI itself, this COVID situation, right? It was not predictable based on the history.
Yeah, the robustness of AI is being challenged. But I think there is opportunity to, especially for medium companies, they don't have the resources. Probably they don't have people to recruit as AI engineer or AI experts. because the tools are there. Everything is triple done with every cloud service provider, and we can help them to crunch their data and find some insights and to help them to succeed on their business goals.
So no particular ideas so far that have popped to your mind how you're going to make the next million and move on from your job based on AI applied to your business?
Well, not really. But I think that one of the things the customers would like to know is how to, are always the main drivers, how to reduce costs, how to increase sales, and customer satisfaction. So I think those are the three main topics that we should address with final customer to do some prototyping.
Have you seen ways of starting to experiment or getting more ideas out of the courses you're attending with Coursera on this that could be inspiring to other people? How do you get the best ideas coming out of those moments of learning this stuff?
Well, I think that these courses are also very valuable to define priorities. Of course, we always like to know about cognitive success, like to autopilot cars or vision recognition, speech recognition, or even a complicated game. As a fact, people say that the best gamers will be AI software, not humans, in e-gaming. But I think that we need to focus more in customer data, probably with some simple algorithms like linear regression or logistic regression will be, between brackets, enough to show the success of these AI solutions. And the good news is that if you are here on this community and you are seeking to shift or to upgrade your career with AI, everything is available. The tools, the learning courses, and the community that we are now starting. And of course, this will help everybody to go in a AI maturity level curve very easily.
Very good. Carlos, back to you for a time check because you have some last question and we have a minute to go.
Okay, thank you, Miguel.
Thank you a lot, Pedro.
Thank you, Miguel, for leading the panel. I think you are on time for ending the session. Thank you all the participants and speakers for take your time in this Saturday morning to be part of this. We intend to have more events in the future, more specific, so specific areas of AI. We are going to share also the video of this during the next week, and after the event we are going to receive kind of a pool questions from Eventbrite, and if you want to enroll in some of the deeplearning.ai courses, you have kind of a discount. I think it's 50% discount, and you could even apply for a scholarship without paying nothing to enroll these courses. And thank you very much for being with us. I think it's a very interesting community, and we'll try to promote more of these events in the future. Okay, thank you very much. All.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you everybody. Have a rest of a great Saturday. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Okay.